Hello, my name is Julia Widup, and I'm an interviewer with What Should I Be? If you'd like to get more information about What Should I Be, please visit our website at whatshouldIbe.me. We provide complete and free access to a wide variety of interviews spanning many different careers from all over the world. Today I'm speaking with Kris Keppler, and she is a performing artist from Washington State. So, Kris, tell us, what age were you when you first decided to become a performing artist?
Well, actually, I started singing when I was in junior high school and really loved that. And so that sort of started things off. And I wanted to keep singing. And so I started taking lessons. And I sang all the way through junior college, actually.
Uh-huh.
And I started to do a few solos about high school and a few solos in junior college. And then I sort of got bored with choir. Um, and I quit for a while. But I really missed it. So I started back didn't start again until my 30s. And a blind date took me to a Gilbert and Sullivan production, which I really enjoyed the production. I didn't enjoy the date, but I enjoyed the production. And on the program it said, "Oh, we're looking for chorus members." And so I thought, well, I'd like to try that. And I auditioned for their next show and got in the chorus as a fairy.
Wonderful. So that launched you on your way.
That really launched me on my way, yeah, at that point.
And why do you think you were drawn to this specific career or field?
I just love singing. And I wanted, and there's just something about it. I just really loved it. And I wanted to, do it and sing a lot and sing in musicals. And well, then that involves learning acting to be in musicals. And at first it was really about the music and wanting to sing and wanting to keep singing
Uh-huh.
that attracted me to performing in the first place. And once, especially as I started doing more solo stuff, that was a real, especially in the beginning, you get very much of a high out of it, or at least I did.
Uh-huh.
And then once you get that high, you're hooked on it. It As you do it more and more and more and more, you you don't get the high like you used to, but it's still a really nice feeling. You never lose that nice feeling from being in front of an audience or getting feedback, from someone who hears my voiceover. So, yeah.
All right. And what kind of educational or experience requirements do you have to get into this field?
Uh, I would say a lot of the performers obviously have a degree in fine arts,
Mm-hmm.
either a bachelor's, some get a master's, especially if they want to teach, they'll get a master's or a doctorate.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I I don't have actually any of those. I just have a real love for it. But I did get a lot of training. Uh, I just found the best acting school I could in Seattle and started there, started with their basic acting and, just kept taking classes and more classes. And I still continue to train and take classes because I think one thing I like about the performing arts is you're always learning. You never stop learning. There's always something new that you can learn or something that you can do to make your performance better. And
Uh-huh.
I think that's one of the most fun things about it, that you never stop learning.
And so you just kept learning and kept working towards it, huh?
Yes. Yeah, and I still keep learning. I I I just, took a webinar last night in editing audio so I could be a better editor with my voiceovers. And I actually regularly I belong to a voice registry website, and um
The
uh,
what website?
it's called Voice Registry.
Voice Registry? Okay.
Yes. And they offer a program where I get to voice copy uh, a few times a month for some of the leading voice casting producers in the US. And I get
Okay.
feedback. And not only do I get feedback on mine, I get to listen to everybody else's and their feedback. And I can't say enough for, you know, being able to hear what other people are doing and listening to that and listening to the feedback. And I have to tell you, my commercial copy voiceovers have really improved just hearing that, and my narration too. Yeah, so I
Okay.
continue, I do that every month. So I'm just continuing to learn and get better.
And so you're mostly a voice performer, is that correct?
I would say my focus is voice, although voiceover, um, and I actually don't do a lot of singing, but voiceover is really interconnected to singing. And I use, what I've learned in singing every time I do a voiceover, especially because I specialize in narration. And so you're narrating long phrases. You have to plan on the breath, you have to plan on the phrasing, and it's the same thing as singing when you're
Mm-hmm.
singing a song. So I think that's one of the reasons I enjoy voiceover so much. Although I still do film and theater, but in in theater, the voice still counts for a huge amount of what you do in your acting. Voice
Right.
and acting really can't be separated out. Film, it's not so much as your voice, but it's a lot of inflection in your voice and what uh, what your eyes are saying.
Uh-huh. Okay.
No,
And what do you like most about this career?
I just I love entertaining people. I love making people laugh, actually. My favorite is to do is comedy, and um, I also I think one of the biggest things about it is also you just is the learning aspect. I love to keep learning,
Hmm.
and the performing arts is one where there's just no end to what you can learn. Just no end.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. What what is it actually like to work and live day to day as you?
Well, it's it's mostly it it depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes if I'm doing a lot of acting, I'm usually, planning to go out of the house, making sure that, my car is in good working order because I really depend on it as far as transportation because I'm always having to go. Usually acting means driving to a location for the location shoot, driving to interviews, driving to auditions. And so there's a lot of actual planning involved, that you have your audition material ready the night before. If you have to have a monologue, you have to have that ready, and keep up with the monologues if you've got one. So, when someone calls and says, "I need you to come in tomorrow, and by the way, you need a monologue," it's like, "Oh, okay, I've
Now,
got this one here, and I need to go over it." And
what is the monologue? What it's something you've written?
a monologue is usually not something I've written, but it's from a play. Usually, I've been using material from a play that I've been in before. And I often just so it's pre-written material from a
Okay.
play. that
Okay.
you've usually I've worked with a coach, sometimes I haven't, to sort of, tweak it for, because it has to become a standalone piece. Um, yeah, it's usually about a minute to a minute and a half is all you need.
And so that's for an audition.
Yeah, but it has to be memorized, so it's
Okay.
something you have to keep on top of on a regular basis, because you never know when someone's going to say, "Come audition tomorrow, and by the way, you need a monologue."
Right. Okay. And then if you get the part, you have to memorize the part, right?
Yes, in theater you have to memorize the part. It also in film, although I find film is a little less memorization, because film acting is different, because I think of it as acting in bits, because you're only going to do a portion of a script that day, and so
Yeah.
you usually concentrate on that portion, and then the next day, then you're going to concentrate on the next portion. Whereas theater, it's like you got to memorize the whole
The
thing
whole
up
thing.
front.
And what do you like least about your job? I suspect that memorization is it.
Yeah, yeah, it's as I go along, the memorization, especially in theater, I'm finding the memorization required in theater is becoming my most unfavorite. Because film acting, it's usually a shorter, it's shorter memorization, um, because you're doing it in bits.
Mm,
And with voiceover, I'm just reading from copy. So, and I don't have to memorize anything.
right. And you're not on video either usually,
Yeah.
huh?
And lots of times when I'm doing live theater now, I'm actually, I have my own solo show, and it's stuff that I'm writing more, because I have a podcast and a blog, and my blog is all the stuff generally that I write. And so, but I find it's interesting when you write your own material, it's very easy to, for me, it's very easy to memorize it, because you sort of already know it comes
Because it came from you in the first place.
in the first place. Yeah. Yeah. So, um, yeah, definitely the hardest thing at this point is doing theater and have to memorize lots and lots of lines.
And what could someone expect to make in that field? Obviously, there are some stars who make a fortune, but what does an
Yeah.
average person make?
I think that it depends on where you live. Um, I think still nowadays you need to live in a city where you need to live in LA or New York City, or a place where they do a lot of filming, like British Columbia, which means you have to be Canadian. Um, I'm not Chicago. I know of actors that make a living in Chicago.
Hmm.
But still you're probably going to make 20, $30,000, and that's if
Okay.
you're very successful. Um, there's no guarantees. You're probably going to need, um, most people are not only busy auditioning, even in LA, you're busy auditioning, you probably have some kind of side job, something. You really need to think of yourself as an entrepreneur, and what else can I use these skills to make money?
Yeah.
Wha-
Okay.
Uh, yeah.
I kind
Oh,
of always think
please.
it's like
Uh,
Penny on The Big Bang Theory, where she's works at the
yeah.
cheesecake factory.
Yeah, there are a lot, yeah, that you've got some kind of second job. Probably you're going to end up with some kind of second. You're either going to start producing also, directing also, writing also, doing voiceover. Voiceover is uh, uh, one way that really you can use your skills to make income. But you have to think of it as a business. and you have to think of it as multiple streams, finding multiple streams of income, because you're just sometimes you're not going to get that
Mm-hmm.
gig that's series regular, or that continually get cast in movies are really difficult at this point, um, because they're doing a lot of casting on location, and they're only bringing a few people in from LA, and then everything else is cast at that location. So
So they've already cast it before they go
y-
to the
yeah,
location.
yeah. Or what they've done, they've only cast a few leads from LA, and then everybody else is cast locally.
Oh, I see. So
Yeah,
the extras might be cast locally.
that's supporting cast locally
Oh,
too. Yeah,
okay.
a lot of supporting cast is cast at that shooting location.
Okay.
Yeah, because
What
I right.
what were some of the most difficult and challenging things you experienced on your journey getting to where you are today?
I it's been I'm basically an introvert, and um, and I have to tell you, most of the actors I know are introverts.
That's funny.
Yeah, and it's learning actually to deal with that, because when you step on that stage, you need to become an extrovert. And how do you deal with that? And how do you become comfortable with that? And it took a while. I'd say it took a couple years at least, for me to really get comfortable with that idea that you may sit like this, but when you get on stage, it's this.
So you get practice with your acting
Yes.
acting like an extrovert.
Yes. Yeah. So and then when I started to write, I think that was just as scary or scarier than learning to become an extrovert on stage, because writing, and if you're writing your own content, putting it out there, um, and you don't know what people are going to think. Are they going to find it funny? Are they going to find it, you don't know what
Uh-huh.
you're going to get.
Okay.
So that was definitely a hard part.
So you had a little distance if it's somebody else's material.
Yes.
I
And then
see.
it's your own material. It becomes a lot more personal about what people think about it. So yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting that that I'm surprised that most actors are introverts because it seems like it would be just the opposite.
You would think, but I I think I don't know if anybody's done a,
Study.
study study on it, but I think I've heard it thrown out there at least 50%.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I do know I have some actor friends who are definite extroverts, but I sure have a lot more that they're
Introverted.
introverts.
Huh.
Yeah.
What magazines would you recommend people to subscribe to or books to read?
Oh, there's lots of great books out there. I would hmm, I would just go out to Amazon, and anything by David Mamet is great.
Who?
David Mamet, he's a
Mammoth?
one, yeah, Mamet. He's a wonderful playwright, but he's written some really great stuff. I'm I'm sure he's written some really great stuff on acting. Sam Shepard,
Oh
who's also
yeah.
a great playwright, I think has written some stuff on acting. Um, those are two that come to mind. As far as improv goes, Viola Spolin is probably one of the best known, and I know she has books out there. Um, If you go out, always, I like when I go out to Amazon, I look for the best reviewed books and then read the reviews and see what, you think would appeal to you. Because everybody learns differently. And so you really need to find out, by looking at reviews and maybe taking a little bit of look at the book, because I know you can do that a lot on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Find out if that writing style appeals to you and you think that you will learn from it. Um,
And what what magazines are, like industry standards?
there's a, I don't get a lot. I don't read a lot of magazines in the industry. I mostly have a lot of some online. There's a really great one is called Broadway Blogspot.
Broadway
Yeah,
Blogspot.
Blogspot. I think it's .com. And that has been a wonderful resource. I actually wrote an article for them, but they have really great articles
Okay.
and information. There's another one online that I get called Master Teachers that has really great information.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's interesting. Can you describe a typical week? What's a typical week like for you?
A typical week right now is, spend a lot of time online. I have auditions uh, delivered to me, and I look through those to see if there's anything of interest and apply by sending out my resume and headshot to them. Um, I'm for as far as my voiceover work goes, I'm constantly on freelance sites and bidding on work. There's a lot of freelance sites out there have voice talent work available that you just go out and bid on. And then if you get it, uh, then then it's, talking to the client. You're going to do all this, especially voiceover, is via email.
Uh-huh. So lots of
It's
emailing,
far
huh?
long distance. You can send an MP3 file anywhere in the world. I've worked for people in Romania, Scotland, everywhere in the U.S. I don't think. Cairo, Egypt.
Wow. So you're not speaking in their language though, are you?
They're speaking. They're most of the freelancer sites I go to are all English based, so they all speak English out there.
Okay.
Uh, Mostly because most of them, if they're looking for U.S. talent or British talent or Australian talent, they're looking for someone who speaks English.
Right.
Um,
That's good.
yeah, 'cause some of the stuff I did in Cairo, Egypt was, you know, a course on people to learn English.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, yeah,
So they wanted to hear English spoken by a
yeah,
native speaker.
yes, yes.
Okay. And
Yeah.
uh what tips or suggestions would you have for anyone who might be thinking that this would be something they want to do?
You really have, as with anything that you want to do for a living, you really need to like it, really love what you do because it's not easy. Um, it, I have to say, being an entrepreneur of any kind, running your own business, it's not easy. So you really have to want to do that and have a feel that that's what you want to do. And I think especially in the performing arts, people, they think it looks, they see the glamour around it.
Right.
And the day-to-day work is really hard work. Um, and you're dealing with lots of different personalities. You have to learn to deal with lots of different personalities and get along with, if you've got a voiceover client, you have to know how to get along with that client. Some of them aren't always easy. You have to learn to get along with that director. You have to learn to get along with the producer. You have to learn to get along with your fellow actors, even if you don't like them. You may have, a very intimate scene with someone you don't like. And you're going to have to set that aside and just do it. And it's not, the day-to-day work is very hard. Yeah, there's some glamorous parts to it. I just went to a red carpet party for a local festival over the weekend, and those are the fun bits.
Oh, how fun.
But
Okay.
in between, there's a lot of really difficult work. And it's really not, I don't, you know, I've done corporate jobs in the past, and I don't really separate out what I do as a performing artist from what, I would do sitting in a cube at a corporation. It's work. You need to look at it as work and deal with it.
Do deal with the parts you don't like.
Few parts you don't like because there's always going to be parts you don't like.
could could you kind of take us through the story of your life and show us how you got to where you are now?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Uh, like I say, I started out singing, and I really loved singing.
Uh-huh.
And that love of singing, actually, it's never gone away. I still like to sing, and I still do it on a weekly basis to keep my voice in shape, um, because I really use it in my voiceover work. But I just really love to sing. And so I really have that basis for, you know, the performing part of it. It's just never gone away. Um, but like I say, I got bored with choir. It's like I'm tired of just standing here and singing. So I quit for a while. In my 30s, I went back. It's like I really want to get back to this. I miss the singing. There's got to be something else I can do with it. And then it was just luck that I went to that Gilbert and Sullivan production and was reading the program carefully and noticed that they were looking for chorus members. And at first, after the director of the Gilbert and Sullivan company was a little bit eccentric. So I didn't know at first, after my first encounter, if I really wanted to do it again. It was kind of fun, and it was much more fun than choir. But I didn't know if all the companies were quite this strange. Anyway, I sort of sat it out for a year, and then I auditioned again, and I got in The Gondoliers,
Uh-huh.
which is another Gilbert and Sullivan production. And I actually had my own little bit where I fainted several times. And then then I was hooked, and I danced. I had to learn to waltz. And then at that point, I got hooked, and I started then expanding, getting a regular headshot, starting to putting together a real resume. As that's what you need to do is,
Have a portfolio.
start your portfolio. And I started looking around. I started, asking other actors at Gilbert and Sullivan, where else do you audition? Do you know of it? And then they told me about places to find auditions. And uh, and then I started taking some acting lessons,
Uh-huh.
and I enjoyed it. And I thought, yeah, I after I found the right teacher, that's a big thing. I got off on the wrong foot with one of my teachers, and in improv, And I actually had, for several years then, had a block against doing improv. So it's really important um, that you find the right teacher
Uh-huh. Okay.
and learn in a safe environment. Anyway, so I it's like, because I wanted to be out front. It's like, okay, I've been in the chorus for a while. I want to be out front. And so that meant acting classes. And then I found a musical theater company a ways down in Auburn, and got in uh, Oklahoma as a chorus member. But then they cast me as an Aunt Eller understudy. And so I didn't think, well, I'd probably ever do the part, but, every night I listened, I memerized, I listened to the
Yeah.
woman, Aunt Eller, I watched because she dances part of the last part of the jazz dance.
Uh-oh.
But they never had me go up on stage and do the part. I had just watched, and listened from backstage. And then one Saturday night, I got a call 3 hours before the show started. The woman playing Aunt Eller was rehearsing a children's play, and she had fallen off the stage.
Uh-oh.
She couldn't go on.
She couldn't go on, so you had to jump in with 3 hours preparation.
3 hours, yeah.
How did you do?
I scared. It came off okay. I went on stage too early to begin with, but I made it through the dance scene. That scary is trying to, because I'm not a dancer. I have no major dance training, but I made it through the dance scene.
You did? Oh, good.
Yeah, and I got all the lines. All the lines came out, and it actually went really well, considering I had 3 hours.
I bet that was a high to have that.
Yeah, I was definitely hooked at that point. And so that was okay. More acting lessons, look for other parts, I'm going to start doing regular theater. I'm going to get out of musicals, get into regular theater. And I got a break in, I got cast in a very small part with a well-known fringe theater in Seattle. And in fact, I never even walked on stage. All my part was from behind a door, but I had lots of lines, and it was a funny part. So so then directors in Seattle saw me at that point, and I started getting more work in Seattle. And then it was like, well, let's see, what else can I do? I kind of like to try film. And so I started auditioning for student film projects, got in some of those, started building a film resume. And then there's been some more networking going on. Started networking with, going to networking things for local industry networking. That's really important that I enjoy networking, actually, and it's become very important even for actors that you learn to network and go to industry nights and things like that. So, I started, people started knowing who I was, and I started actually getting calls. We'd like to cast you.
Uh-huh.
So that's the best. They just say, we'd like to cast you.
And you don't even have to audition. Yeah, that would be nice.
So, and then it's like, well, gee, what else can I do? I want a chance to make more money at this. I really like, making money at this. So, so I started voiceover, and I really enjoy, voiceover, just because it's so related to singing. And so, and you just keep adding on and looking for things, and it's like, well, gee, I'm going to try new media. I'm going to try podcasting. And so then that meant writing, writing my own stuff. And actually I got started, I decided about, oh, after having this block about improv that I needed to not have that.
Uh,
So I took lessons from a well-known improv teacher who encouraged me to start looking at doing solo stuff. And if you're going to do solo stuff, then you're going to have to start writing. And I started doing that. And I really, I enjoyed that. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Wow. So,
yeah.
what tips or suggestions could you give someone who's thinking they might like to be a performing artist?
Don't, don't be, if you really need to start taking some lessons, get some acting lessons, get some, if you like to dance, and you get some dancing lessons. It's start taking some lessons and talking to people about, oh, what, and find local theater in your area and go to plays. If there's a film, local film festival, go to those films, because they usually have a lot of cities now have 48-hour film festivals, 72-hour film festivals
Yeah.
where a group makes a film in a really short period of time. And actually, those are fun. I've done several, but then they have a screening, and a local screening. So then who the local directors are, who the local producers are. Um, so then you can, and usually at the film festivals they have a Q&A with the directors and producers, and so you sort of get an idea of what's happening locally, and so you start, taking lessons and finding out, how to find out about auditions, and when your teacher feels you might be ready, start going to auditions. And
Uh-huh.
it's scary at first. Yes, it's going to be scary. It's going to be scary, but if you go and if you're really enjoying your lessons, and then you go to auditions and you got in to, even the chorus stuff, and you really enjoy it, then that's a really good sign that you're going to enjoy, keep, keep doing it, and don't let people discourage you. So if you really like it,
Yeah.
but you got to know if you're really going to like it, because until you get into a play or a film, or you don't really know how hard it is.
Yeah.
It's
So you should try it and see. What about a mentor? Did you have a mentor, or can you suggest how someone might get a mentor?
yeah, you know, I started out, my teachers were my mentors.
Okay. Your acting
Yeah.
teachers?
Yeah, acting, voice, my voice teachers were my mentors. And then as you grow and meet more people, then I think you find other mentors to, move you along in
Uh-huh.
the process. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Um, so so you started out, and did you go to college at all? Did you get a
Yeah, I do have a college degree in allied health.
allied health? Okay.
Actually, it's sort of like a biology degree, which
So you can do that to support yourself while you're looking for our acting jobs?
yeah, that's, well, I have to say, actually, I started out as a medical technologist,
Uh-huh.
and I hated it. You don't want to do a job you hate.
No.
In any, even a corporate job, you don't want to do a corporate job you hate, because it's bad.
Yeah.
It was bad. And so I fell into purchasing, and I've actually done that for several years to help support myself. And I actually find it interesting.
Okay.
Uh, but I, um, but it's, uh, but I prefer the performing artist.
Uh-huh.
It's, either way, it's work. It's,
So as
it's
a
hard work.
performing artist, you're basically an entrepreneur because
Yes, you are. You are an entrepreneur. Yes.
you
Yeah.
don't really get jobs in that field, right?
No.
More like
No.
gigs.
Yeah, more like gigs.
So what are the best tips you could give somebody wanting to do this?
It's take lessons and get in a play, get in a film and find out what it's really like. Even local independent film it's not going to be that different it's actually not that different from Hollywood film.
Okay.
They all use about pretty much the same process. So if you get in a film and you discover you don't like standing around for 4 hours and or lying on the pavement in November till you can't feel your feet because they've frozen.
Ah, you've had to do that?
Or, yeah, that happened to me. Or you don't like it when the crew drops a cell phone on your face for a scene.
Oh, no.
Or you don't like kissing your lead and you know he's gay. Then you don't want to do this. Because you will end up in one of those situations. I'm a character actress. You wouldn't think that I need to kiss someone, but I have.
You've had to. Okay. And what is the difference between a character actor and any other actor? What?
And a character actor is someone like F. Murray Abraham or let's see. It, you're not considered, mostly in film, I do supporting roles almost exclusively. You're not going to be a lead. Like Kathy Bates, occasionally you get lead stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they've a few leading parts, but if you look at their films overall, everything, mostly it's smaller roles you're supporting.
Okay.
What's called supporting. And the leads are for beautiful people.
Stars, yeah, and people like that. Okay.
Still be a star and be a character actor. I mean, Kathy Bates is still a star.
Yeah.
She's, a character. It's the not as beautiful people usually.
Okay.
It's still fun and it's great work. And for voiceover, it doesn't matter what you look like.
Right. Because you're only going to be hearing your voice. Do you do audiobooks?
I do audiobooks. Yeah, I just completed my 4th one about a month ago.
And I would think there's a lot of work in that area with all the new books.
There is, and they actually prefer actors for audiobooks. I was just at a conference last year, and the big publishing houses were they were out looking for actors to narrate because it's just such a fit for an actor to do an audiobook. And not every voice fits every book. So they're always looking for new talent, and audio is it just keeps increasing. So, and I enjoy it. Audiobooks are it was fun. I just mostly I've done nonfiction because my last book I narrated was a guide to home canning.
Oh, okay.
But actually, very fun to narrate. And I like to cook, so she had some really great recipes. It's like, wow, maybe we should take up canning. This is such a great recipe.
And what about animated movies? You do those, I assume?
I haven't really gotten into that because generally still with animation, um, it's usually still very local. And if you don't have an animation, it's still mostly in LA, New York. There's more of it being done online, and so there's becoming more animation work, but it's usually for internet work.
Uh-huh.
And I have done some of that. I actually did an animated character for a commercial,
Oh,
for an online,
uh-huh.
yeah, commercial ad online.
Okay.
So that was fun.
Like the Geico Gecko.
Yeah,
Somebody
yeah.
does his voice.
Yeah, there's more of that, and there's, of course, I just recently did an audition for a game, because they also use, more cartoon animated voices for gaming. So,
Oh, yeah, they would, huh? So your voice appears on some games.
I've so far I've only voiced one game, and that was for the client in Romania. So
Oh, so it's not likely I'll play that game.
never been released or not. So
Okay.
I do specialize in children's audiobooks. And so I've done several of those. That's really fun. And I do all the different voices. So I actually voiced recently the original version of Rapunzel, which I had never heard before.
Uh-huh.
And that was really, now that's a challenge to play the gardener, the prince, the princess, and the witch all in the same story.
All in the same story? Well, it sounds fun. Or you make it sound fun.
It's very fun. It's very fun, but it's also hard work.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today and explaining this. Have I forgotten to ask you anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kris.
Okay, you're welcome.